There are things we carry for decades without realizing how heavy they've become. Arthur had carried his for 40 years. He was 71 now, retired, living alone in the house where he'd grown up, in a small town in western Pennsylvania. The kind of place where the roads still had names instead of numbers, and the neighbors knew what you'd had for breakfast before you'd finished eating it. His mornings were quiet. Coffee, the newspaper, the physical one, because he didn't trust anything that disappeared with a click. A walk to the end of the driveway to check the mailbox, even on days he wasn't expecting anything. He hadn't been expecting anything that Tuesday. The envelope was old. That was the first thing he noticed. Not old like yesterday's mail. Old like something that had been somewhere dark and still for a very long time. The paper had turned the color of weak tea. The edges were soft, almost velvety, the way paper gets when it absorbs years instead of just moisture. There was no return address, just his name, written in a handwriting he hadn't seen in 4 decades. Arthur. One word. But his hands already knew. He didn't open it inside. He didn't know why. Some instinct pulled him to the porch, to the old wooden chair he'd refinished 3 summers ago and never quite gotten the color right on. He sat down. The morning was cool. A cardinal landed on the fence post across the yard and just stayed there, watching him the way birds sometimes do when they have nowhere better to be. Arthur turned the envelope over in his hands twice. 3 times. Then he opened it. Dear Arthur, I've written this letter 4 times. I threw away the first 3 because I kept trying to explain, and every explanation sounded like an excuse. So this time, I'm just going to say the thing. I'm sorry I left the way I did. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder. I'm sorry I let fear make the decision that should have been ours to make together. I don't know if you ever think about that summer. I think about it more than I probably should. The drive-in on Route 9. The way you laughed at the wrong parts of every movie and I loved you for it. The night it rained and we stayed in your car until 2 in the morning, talking about everything and nothing. And I remember thinking that I had never felt so completely found. I moved away and told myself that was the right thing. I built a life. A good one, I think. But there's a version of me that never stopped standing in your driveway that August night, trying to find the words that would have changed everything. I'm not writing this to ask for anything. I just needed you to know that what we had was real to me, that you were real to me. Eleanor. Arthur read it twice, then a 3rd time, slowly, the way you read something when you need the words to land somewhere deeper than your eyes. Eleanor. He hadn't said her name out loud in years. He had thought it on certain evenings, on certain songs, on the particular quality of late summer light that still, inexplicably, made his chest tighten. But he hadn't said it. It had lived in the part of him that didn't need language. The part that simply knew. He sat on that porch for a long time. The cardinal eventually flew away. He was 31 when he met her. She was 29. It was at a county fair, of all the unremarkable places, and she had been standing near the ring toss booth arguing, very calmly and very seriously, with a teenager about whether the rings were regulation size. Arthur had stopped walking just to listen. Not to her words, to the way she said them, measured and warm and absolutely certain, without ever being unkind. He'd found a reason to stand nearby for 20 minutes. He'd found 3 more reasons after that. They had 8 months together. 8 months that, in retrospect, felt like a complete education in what it meant to be truly known by another person. She saw the parts of him he hadn't yet named. She asked questions he hadn't thought to ask himself. She made the ordinary things: a Sunday drive, a pot of soup, a disagreement about whether a window should be open, feel like small, significant events worth remembering. And then her mother got sick. And then the job offer came through, 3 states away. And then Eleanor made the decision quietly, alone, the way she sometimes made decisions when she thought she was protecting someone. She left in August. He got a postcard 2 weeks later. Settled in. "I think this was right. Take care of yourself, Arthur." He read it until the edges were soft. He hadn't searched for her. That was the thing he wasn't sure he could explain to anyone. In the years when searching became easy, when you could find anyone with a name and a town, and 20 minutes of patience, he had chosen not to. It felt like a boundary she had drawn. He had respected it the way you respect a closed door, not knowing whether the person behind it is sleeping or simply not ready. But now she had opened the door. The letter was postmarked 4 days ago, local. He checked twice. He typed her name into the search bar. It didn't take long. Eleanor Marsh. She was a retired school teacher. She had moved back to the region 6 years ago to be closer to her daughter, who lived in a town called Millhaven. Arthur knew Millhaven. He had driven through it dozens of times. It was 40 minutes away, maybe 45 with traffic on the bridge. He sat with that for a moment. 40 minutes, for 6 years, without either of them knowing. He thought about what to write for most of the afternoon. He started with Dear Eleanor, and then stared at the blank space after it for 30 minutes. He tried, "It was real to me too," and deleted it because it felt insufficient. He tried, "I never looked for you because I was afraid of what I'd find," and deleted that because it was too much, too fast. In the end, he wrote the simplest version of the true thing. "Eleanor, I still have the letter you wrote me from the bus station in 1985, the one you sent before the postcard. I've kept it in the same drawer for 40 years. I think we have some catching up to do. Arthur. P.S. I live 40 minutes from Millhaven." I checked. He mailed it the next morning, and then he waited. He was good at waiting. He had been practicing for 40 years after all, even if he hadn't known that was what he was doing. She called on a Thursday. He almost didn't pick up. Unknown number. And he had reached the age where unknown numbers were rarely good news. But something made him answer. Something that felt, absurdly, like recognition before he'd even heard her voice. Arthur, 2 syllables. The same way she used to say his name when she meant something else entirely by it. "Eleanor," he said, and they both laughed, a little and a little nervously, and in a way that made 40 years collapse into almost nothing. They met on a Saturday. She drove to him. She insisted, said she owed him that much. He cleaned the porch, and then immediately regretted how obvious that was, and then didn't care. She pulled into the driveway at 11 in the morning, and he stood at the top of the porch steps, and for a moment they both just looked at each other, seeing the years, seeing, underneath the years, the people they had been. She looked like herself. That was the thing he hadn't been prepared for, that through all the change, she simply looked like Eleanor, a little slower, a little softer, her hair silver-streaked now, worn back the same way she'd always worn it, the same green eyes, the same way of tilting her head slightly when she was about to say something careful. "You look good," she said. "You're being generous," he said. "I always was," she said. And he laughed, really laughed, the full kind, and held the door open and went inside to make coffee. They sat on the porch for 3 hours. They talked about everything. Her daughter, his son in Colorado, the years that had been hard, the years that had been surprisingly kind, the choices that had made sense at the time and the ones that still didn't. The strange fact of being in your 70s and still not entirely sure what you were supposed to do next. At some point, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote it 42 years ago," she said. "I just never sent it, until now." "Why now?" Arthur asked. She was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that means the answer is real. "Because I finally stopped being afraid of what you'd say back." Arthur thought about all the mornings he had walked to the mailbox expecting nothing, all the Tuesdays that had come and gone, without ceremony, without arrival, without the soft velvety weight of something that had been kept for 40 years finally finding its way home. He thought about the cardinal on the fence post. He thought about the way time moves, not forward exactly, but in layers, each one pressing down on the one beneath it, until one day something rises back to the surface and you realize it was never truly gone. It was just waiting for the right Tuesday. He looked at Eleanor. She was watching the yard, the way the light came through the elm trees in the late morning, the same light that had been coming through those trees his entire life. "I'm glad you sent it," he said. She smiled. Didn't look at him right away. Just let the smile sit there in the morning air between them, unhurried. "Me too," she said. "Me too." Some things don't arrive late. They arrive exactly when both people are finally ready. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if there's a letter you've been meaning to send, maybe it's time. Subscribe to Left Untold, where every story is real, human, and worth telling.